children, like a lot of kids, like running around here, like most kids, they run around, they jump, they are people call them hyperactive. Okay, what do you think if you see a child who's running, what normally people will do?
Get mad.
Get mad is one of the things, and then ask them to
Stop.
sit down, stop, or force them to sit.
Yeah.
But actually, you can't do that.
Hai, Assalamualaikum. Hari ini kita bertemu lagi dalam segmen Borak Pa&Ma dan memandangkan dalam bulan April ni, early April, kita sebenarnya akan menyambut World Autism Awareness Day. Jadi hari ini kita akan bercerita serba sedikit tentang autism. Sebenarnya autism ni dah ramai yang tahu dan dah biasa pun kita dengar, tapi sejauh mana pengetahuan kita tentang autism? Jadi hari ini bersama dengan saya adalah Miss Misha. Maybe you can introduce yourself?
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today, especially for the Autism Awareness Month.
Alright.
My name is Misha. I'm the director of Alrite Autism Centre. I've been working with kids with autism for 17 years, and I'm also a registered behavior technician.
Alright, so 17 years is not a short period. So can you please explain to us a little bit of your experience?
It has been a wonderful journey, and I'm very passionate about what I'm doing.
Alright, okay.
I have a deep passion in teaching children with autism, creating materials, creating programs for them. I have a lot of passion in training parents and teachers as well. So we have taken our training programs abroad to countries like Ladakh and Nepal. And
Wow.
we are also launching our new program right now, Alrite Autism Frontier program.
Okay.
And the first pilot program will be in Nepal in May. Yeah.
Alright, okay. So good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, Miss Misha, kita nak cerita tentang autism. Yelah, ramai yang tahu, biasa dengar tentang autism, aware dengan autism, tapi tak ramai yang tahu apa itu sebenarnya autism. Okay, so kalau boleh Miss Misha explain sedikit pada kita punya follower, apa sebenarnya autism ni?
So autism is a neurological condition.
Alright, okay.
It affects the many development area of the children, predominantly on the speech, language, communication part, and then the cognitive ability. If you look at a lot of studies which is in progress in the genetics part and also the psychophysiology part, and there is no curative cure exists currently, which means that a cure at the
Betul.
moment, but there is a treatment for
Alright.
them. They can progress in their language skills, they can progress in their cognitive ability, but the neuroanatomy and the neurodevelopment says that the neurons can, like we have neurons, millions and trillions of neurons in our brain. The typical person's neuron and the neuron of a child with autism is different. So they say there is an abnormal birth of the neurons, and there is also abnormalities in the neurotransmitters. So in the neurons there is chemicals that is called neurotransmitters, like serotonin and dopamine, and that there are abnormalities in there for them. And they also say the brain part, that is the limbic system, the cells in the limbic system is very densely packed, and then the front part, that is a frontal lobe, is a little bigger in the size. And they also say that studies also says that the neuron connections affects the cortical networks. So that is what leads to all the symptoms that we can actually see for autism, like for example the repetitive behavior, social communication deficit. So these are the symptoms that you can actually see, which is caused by the neurological disorder.
Okay, understood. So kalau boleh Miss Misha share a little bit of the symptoms yang parents sepatutnya tahu, and then kalau dah detect the symptoms pada anak-anak mereka ni, apa yang sepatutnya mereka buat? Pergi ke hospital ke atau pergi ke development center ke?
Usually what happens is the moment at the age of 2, some children they will be having good development, the development until the age of 2, and then you can see the regression from there. And some children you can see that there will be developmental delay, There will be no speech in them. There's no eye contact. There will be certain repetitive behaviors. So the first thing that parent will know is like, oh, there is some delay in the development, and they will definitely go for a diagnosis. So once the child is diagnosed, the first thing that you need to do is early intervention. That is very, very important, because early intervention and behavioral treatment has been proven to be very effective to develop skills for children in the spectrum, and it has also been proven that they have behavioral issues as reduced in them. So a lot of behavioral scientists, they have developed principal learning theories.
Okay.
Which can teach children with autism, because they learn differently, they process language differently, they process sound differently, their sensory integration is different. So this has to be addressed first.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So with that behavioral intervention and also the early intervention, if you have intensive behavioral treatment, a lot of kids has successfully went to the mainstreaming school, and even if the children are not going to the school, they are not able to go to the mainstreaming school, you can see some significant improvements in their language skills, self-help skill. They are more independent, they are more compliant. Yeah, you can teach them a lot of things. It's just that they are a little different. The diversity is there. They learn differently. They do things differently. They think in a different way, and because we all know that they are visual learners, they are phenomenal visual learners.
Okay. And then they have a very big potential also, okay?
They do have potential, that's what we say. Like, what sometimes we are rushing into them is like we are trying to fit them into our world. So don't do that. Look at the diversity. Look at their differences as a strength.
Yeah.
That is the awareness and the acceptance that we can give them, because they have so much of potential in them. But if you give them the time, if you rectify, if you are able to work on the core skills and develop the core skills for them, they will be able to function.
Okay, Miss Misha, what I learned, kebanyakan autism kids, they have a very, very big potential, especially in art. Can you explain that?
They have, you see, like what happens to them, like, let's look into the core deficits of autism first. The core deficits of autism is basically, we only know the symptoms. Whether they have repetitive behavior, the lack of eye contact. These are the symptoms that we're talking about. But let's go into the core deficits. The core deficits would be the theory of mind, executive function, and central coherence. The theory of mind is basically, it's, like, I'm looking at you. I have the ability to predict the external state of affair and the internal state of mind. Okay, that is theory of mind. So basically, I can look at you and I can actually list out a list of maybe. Okay, maybe it's like, oh, you may be thinking this, you may be thinking that. So that is like your mental state. I can read your mental state. So I have the ability to mentalize. But children in the spectrum, they don't have most of them, that they may have difficulties in mentalizing, which means they can't look at you and at the same time think about your mental state. Oh, you are looking at that, and look into your body language, your non-verbal gestures. They are not able to do that. They are not able to integrate that. So the first thing that you need to work on is to develop their theory of mind. Usually theory of mind develops by the age of 5.
Okay.
In a typical developing child. But in children with autism, they may have difficulties in theory of mind.
Okay.
So that's where they call the concept of mind blind. So you got to work on, and that leads to social and communication deficits.
Okay.
So you got to work a lot on their theory of mind. You got to work on their executive functions. The executive function is basically more on their memory, their organizing skills. These are the important part of the executive function, which involves more of your brain part.
Okay.
So they have to work on the executive function and also the central coherence. Central coherence is basically more on, like, our perception, right? It's global. Like, you can talk to me, you can see, and you can also be aware of the surroundings around you. But for them, they are more on, their perceptions are more fragmented, which means it's like everywhere. It's like they perceive one part as a whole. So that's why they have this repetitive behavior. They take a car, they look at the wheels and they like to turn the wheels. They don't play at it functionally. So these are some of the behaviors that they exhibit because of the deficits in theory of mind, executive function, and also the central coherence.
Okay. So, can you please explain to us, adakah is it mitos ataupun fakta pemakanan juga mempengaruhi ataupun menyumbang kepada masalah autism ini?
See, there are a lot of studies in progression. And there is no, and these are all the things that has been discovered and people have been working on it.
Okay.
And it has also been proven that children in the spectrum are improving significantly.
Okay.
But as I told you, there is no curative
Yep.
cure that currently exists. But working with them continuously on their skill set
Okay.
and other issues like sensory integration do help them to progress better.
Alright.
Yes.
Okay. So kids with autism ni memerlukan perhatian, attention lebih daripada kanak-kanak biasa kan Miss Misha. So kalau boleh Miss Misha cerita juga dengan kita bagaimana untuk kita fulfill their needs of emotion and juga diorang punya needs untuk in study. Can you please explain that?
Okay. First, I would say that when you're actually working with a child with autism and the child is diagnosed, the first thing that you need to actually work on is their guts.
Okay.
Work on their gut health first. That's very, very important. Please recognize what are the food that is causing inflammation.
Okay.
For the food, like for example in Alrite, we are very strict about the food that children bring for their snacks and lunch.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So we don't allow food which is processed food, food which has a lot of MSGs and gluten and sugary food, because that can cause inflammation to your intestines. And gastrointestinal issues of kids in the spectrum, they are 4 times common in them compared to other individuals. And there is also a lot of studies going on which is linked to the gut and brain link and gut microbiome, which the studies is progressive, but when we look in our real life case in Alrite, you can see the significant changes in their behaviors and in also their learning capacity when this food are eliminated or reduced from their diet.
Okay, so what are the foods yang Miss Misha suggest yang you better bagi pada anak-anak yang ada autism ni?
It's more on home cooked healthy food, like don't give them processed food. I know now like most parents are working and then they are like
And
it's
the
easily
easiest way,
accessible.
yeah.
They can just go and get the food, the processed food, but that is causing a lot of damages for them in their behaviors. And I think that awareness has to be there as well. No amount of research based cognitive program is going to help them if you are not working on their guts, if you're not working on their biological factors.
So that's the main factor.
Yeah, if the body has a lot of heavy toxic and metal, then the processing and the individual exhibits a different behavior. Individual exhibits a different, because it's the biological that it comes first.
Yeah. Okay, understood. So can you please share with us adakah di Malaysia ni sudah cukup facilities yang ada untuk membantu anak-anak autism?
Yeah, we do have. We do have now. We have the awareness has increased a lot, and we have a lot of centers mushrooming, and even in Alrite, we provide a lot of trainings for parents. We provide a lot of trainings for educators as well, and we make sure that we provide the right support for them. Yeah.
Yang penting once the parents dah tahu and detect kan anak-anak tu ada autism, ada simptom-simptom autism, bawa mereka untuk diagnose, dan jika betul dapatkan bantuan daripada
The earlier that you are bringing your child for the diagnosis and the early intervention, the faster you can treat and you can see the progress in your child.
Betul. So I agree with that. Cuma I nak tanya, biasanya di center-center, development center untuk anak-anak autism ni, apa perkara-perkara utama yang diajarkan kepada mereka, Miss Misha?
I can start what we are doing in Alrite first.
Of course.
Right. First and most, as I told you, work on the gut health first.
Okay.
Extremely important, because inflammatory food can create a lot of things biologically for the child. Second, work on calming the brain and the nervous system.
Okay.
There are a lot of activities which you can work on calming the brain and the nervous system. Second, next you go on to the sensory integration.
Okay.
Sensory integration is very, very important. Now, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
How many senses do you think we have?
I think we got 6.
Okay. So, what are the senses?
Touching,
Okay.
hearing, tasting.
Right. We also have another 2 senses that is
Okay.
called vestibular and proprioceptive senses. The vestibular and proprioceptive is more on movements and balance. Okay, for example, I'm going to give you an
Okay.
example now. All the senses has receptors, correct?
Okay.
Okay, like for example, touch, the receptors in your skin,
Yes.
and the receptor is the one which is sending the message to the brain. Right?
Okay.
And the brain will process the information and give you an adaptive response for it.
Okay.
Correct? That's number 1. Okay, for example, there's a hot kettle and you don't know the kettle is hot and you went and touched it. Correct? So what will you do? You'll immediately take your
Yes,
hands out.
yes.
Because why? Because your skin as a receptor is sending the right message to your brain, and your brain is saying, no, you have to take your hands out. If you
yeah.
don't do that, you will burn your skin.
Yeah.
So this happens in milliseconds, correct? Just
Yeah,
in split
correct.
seconds. So what happens, this is where it's called your senses are integrated, correct? But for most of the children in the spectrum, they have sensory dysfunction,
Okay.
which
Okay.
means some of the senses may be not integrating and the brain is not producing the adaptive response. Okay, for example, you can actually see children, like a lot of kids, like running around here, like most kids, they run around, they jump, people call them hyperactive. Okay, what do you think if you see a child who is running, what normally people will do?
Get mad.
Get mad is one of the things, and then ask them to
Stop.
sit down, stop,
Yeah,
or force them to sit.
Yeah.
But actually, you can't do that because that's how the system works.
Yeah.
Okay, like for example, sensory dysfunction, it has hypo and hypersensitivity. Either they will be craving for the senses, or they are seeking. They are very sensitive towards the senses, which means that senses can be very overwhelming for them. And they are trying their best to keep themselves calm by running around, by jumping. So for you, running around and jumping can be like, oh, what is this? This is notorious, But for them, jumping and running is very calm. So for example, let's take in a very practical way. For example, in a classroom.
Okay.
In a classroom, probably you have about 10 children, and 2 of it has in the spectrum, and they like to walk around. And they just walk around and walk around and walk around. So that will be very disruptive for the class, right?
Yes.
So usually what we'll do, we have our school readiness program and all, right? And we have kids, like we have like 6 to 7 kids in the class, and they are always like that on go. So what we do is, like, you can't stop them from there because that is what is making them very calm.
Okay.
So what we have under the table, we have this moving instrument. So we have their legs constantly moving, and believe me, when their legs are continuously moving, they can actually sit and focus and do their work.
Oh, okay.
So you are providing them with that input, vestibular input. Let them run, let them climb, let them go on the swing. They will feel calm and they'll come back to you. We called it as sensory dysfunction over there.
Okay, something new for me.
Especially like kids who are like breaking the pencils or biting the pencils, instead of telling them to stop, like give them an instruments that, we have a lot of sensory items which can actually like break it, like just click, sounds click, and that is what they actually want. So what happens, right, when there is input from the receptor, the 2 senses that I told you just now, that is the vestibular and proprioceptive. So this 2 receptor, like for your skin, for your touch, the receptor is in your skin. For the balance and movement, the receptors is in your inner ears.
Okay.
So the receptor will send the message to the brainstem, and the brainstem will send the message to the thalamus, the cortex, the cerebellum, and the spinal cord. And the spinal cord, and those are the mediums which is going to give you the adaptive responses, your body awareness, your spatial organization, and all those things. So what happens if there is no integration in that? So if there is no integration from the receptor to the parts of the brain, so that's where you can see the child jumping and everything. So now what is the teachers or the educators supposed to do is that the treatment session should be inclusive of the vestibular and proprioceptive input for kids who are, constantly on the move. So don't try to stop them.
Don't you ever stop.
Don't. Desensitize the sensory integration for them. Do work on the sensory integration. That will help them a lot. The more you stop, the more they are going to jump, the more they are going to run around, and then the more they are going to seek for that. They're called hyposensitivity. And then work on the reflex integration.
Okay.
The reflexes is basically the involuntary movements that you have when in infancy. So you see, like the awareness of, like, in everything that you're doing, even your grasp, your pencil grip, your attention, your scissor skill, everything has a stage. Like at this age, this is where the development is, at this particular stage is development. Like for example, pen. So for example, this is the pencil, correct?
Okay.
A child below 2 years old will always hold the pencil like this. So we call this fisted grasp. So the child will be scribbling this way.
Yes.
The reason why the child is holding, so there is a developmental growth there. So the child holds the pencil like this, and then child at the age like this, at the age of 2, the child transforms to this, and then to this, and then only finally to pincer grasp. I mean, this is a tripod grasp. So what happens is, like, the reason why this development is happening is because the child's development growth is from proximal to distal, which means the bigger muscle to the smaller muscle. So the child needs to be stabilize the bigger muscles first in order before the smaller muscles are well strengthened. So when the child is 2 years old or 3 years old, the child is holding the pencil, like the child is below 2 years old, child is holding the pencil like this. And when the parents are forcing the child to hold this, so is this a right way or a wrong way? Is it right or no?
No.
Definitely no. Because you know why? The reason the child is holding is like this, because the child is developing from the proximal to distal. The child is developing the bigger muscles to the smaller muscles. So when you force the child to do that, that's where later on you can see the result of, like, the child is not interested in writing, the child is not interested in maybe the child will have bad handwriting. So this is what happens there. This is about the pencil grip that I'm talking about. So it has stages from the child from 2 to 7 years old. What are the stages of the pencil grip? Okay, the another thing that happens is, like, okay, for example, let's take reading.
Okay.
Right? Reading. When you're talking about reading, a lot of children may have difficulties in reading. So what parents usually do, or what we do, is, like, give them more reading, ask them to read more. But actually, sometimes when they have difficulties in reading, you got to work more on their visual perceptual skills, visual processing skills. Okay, for example, oculomotor. Oculomotor is one of the visual scanning skills that you have to work on. Like, for example, when you read, how do you read? Your eyes and your brain integration is involved. So you read from left to right, correct?
Yeah.
So that eye coordination is extremely important. Like, for example, there are 3 stages in 3 types of oculomotor, that is fixation, saccades, and pursuit.
Okay.
You need to work. So we train children on that. We train children on visual processing skills. We train children on visual scanning, visual closure, figure ground. So when you're working on these core skills, you can see the significant results later on in other developmental skills as well.
Okay, but it's usually happen when we are forcing our kids, kan? Macam kita memang targeted untuk anak boleh membaca by the age of 5.
5.
Let's say 5 or 6. And then they couldn't do that. So kita as a parents, it's typically akan happen which parents akan try to force their kids untuk boleh membaca at the stage of
4, 3 or 4. Yes, correct.
So that can lead to tantrum as well, is it, Miss Misha?
Because their core is the visual processing. I mean, I'm telling this is a general thing that I'm talking about. Like, if the child is not interested in writing, it could be, don't force the child to write. It could be work on the grip, work on the fine motor skills, work on the gross motor skills. So that will strengthen the learning, the writing skills later on. If the child is not able to read, it's the same thing. So now we are talking about the cognitive ability, right? So same goes to the children, the spectrum. The moment, there are a lot of research-based methodologies that is available out there. Like, for example, ABA is one of the predominant, which works on the skill acquisition and behavior modification as well. But what happens if the gut is not healthy and the brain and the nervous system is not calm, and reflex integration is not there, and the sensory integration, is not working. But there's a dysfunction in sensory. So what amount of research base is going to help the child?
They all link actually.
It's all linked. So it's not one way. You ought to work in all areas to help the child accordingly. And then you can see the improvement later on. You see, like, I have this one example which I always tell all parents. It's like, if you have a puzzle and the puzzle is square, and the puzzle is round, and you have a square cube. And when you try to put the square cube into the puzzle, in the round thing, you are damaging both surfaces.
Yeah.
So don't do that. Don't do that. You're damaging both surfaces. So accept the diversity, accept the differences, give them time to process. They learn everything differently. They communicate differently. Their language processing is differently. So give them the time to do that.
Okay, Miss Misha, how are we going to handle the situation of the kids tantrum? Because bila kita bercerita tentang autism, tantrum adalah antara the things yang akan berlaku. So what you can suggest to our viewer, how they can actually handle this kind of situation? Sebab this thing actually needs a very semangat yang sangat kuat, and we have to be patient, very patient about it. So how to handle the tantrum problem?
There is no quick fix in it, and there is no overnight solution for it as well. So as I told you, work on the core. There has to be a reason why the child is behaving like that. There is a reason why the behavior is emerging. So if you look into the behavior modification part, there are a lot of strategies that we can actually implement. Work with professionals to address that. But before working on that, as I told you, address the gut issues, address the integration part, sensory part, like, don't stop your child from doing anything. Try to learn where is it coming from, what is the core issues. It could be a gut irritation, it could be a sensory dysfunction. So when you're working on that, you can see the significant reduction in the behavior. So behavior comes in different forms. Behavior comes in different, and when one behavior is like you manage to modify one behavior, another behavior will come. So that is pretty common. So I always tell our parents and my clients, is like, this is a long run.
Journey.
It's not a short run, it's a marathon. You got to be very, very strong in this journey, and you need the support system, you need professionals to work with you. That's important.
Okay, Miss Misha, actually kita dah sampai ke penghujung sesi Borak Pa&Ma kita hari ini. Tapi last, I just want you to give some wishes ataupun semangat to all the parents yang mungkin mempunyai anak-anak autism.
Well, as I told you, this is definitely, you need to be very strong in this journey.
Yes, this is marathon.
It's a marathon. I said it's not a short run, it's a marathon. You need to have the support system. You need to go for a lot of workshops and trainings and educate yourself. It's very important. Awareness is very important. At the same time, when you have got that awareness, please help other parents as well.
Yes.
Another thing that I wanted to talk about, we were talking just now to one of your colleagues, was schools. I think like schools plays a vital role here as well, because one of the biggest challenges that we face right now is like, after our therapy session for 6 months or 1 year or 1.5 years, when the child goes out, we have this huge challenge of finding the right schools for them. Because some schools doesn't have the support to accommodate them. They don't have the right teachers to accommodate them. And I think schools plays a very, very important role in identifying, let's say, like, for example, for us, when parents come to us, they already have the diagnosis with them, and they already have a certain level of acceptance when they come to us. Because we are more on the therapy session. But those who are going to the preschools, they may not have that acceptance, or may they not even know what autism is, or they may be in denial. But school plays a very vital role in helping them to understand, to get the right support. And also, that is part one. And another part is like, when they are actually after their therapy sessions, when they are ready for a preschool or a primary school, I think school needs to support them accordingly. Like, I always believe in most of the trainings that we talk about is like equality and equity.
Yeah, agree.
So you can't treat everybody equally. If you treat everybody equally, the one who needs the support may not be able to actually get the support. So you need to have equity. Equity means providing who needs support needs to be given more support on that. So as a school, they need to hire the team, they need to hire the teachers to support them. Only this way we can give them the opportunity for diversity. We can make diversity our strength.
Yes.
We can create more awareness, more acceptance
Yeah.
in this. Yeah.
Okay. What a great sharing with Miss Misha today.
Thank you for having us here.
Okay, lastly, maybe you nak wish Autism Month.
Yes, thank you for having us here today and allowing us to create more awareness and acceptance.
Yeah.
Oh, I would like to tell parents that work on the gut issues, be aware of what is the food that's causing inflammation, work on the sensory integration, to work on calming the brain and the nervous system, and create more awareness and acceptance. I think the world needs a lot of kind people who can accept these children because they are so capable.
Yeah.
They are very capable, and give them a chance and give them an opportunity to bring their potential out. That is the biggest thing that the community can do for them.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the
Thank you.
very major love for the kids with autism, Miss Misha and team. Okay, kita dah pun berakhir untuk Borak Pa&Ma kita pada hari ini. Dan jangan lupa untuk teruskan memberi sokongan anda kepada Pa&Ma. Ikuti kami di media sosial kami di YouTube, Facebook, TikTok dan juga Instagram majalah Pa&Ma untuk mengikuti lebih banyak lagi info-info berkaitan dengan perkembangan anak dan sebagainya. Dan sekali lagi, thank you so much Miss Misha for your time today. Despite of your busy schedule, I think kan. Okay, so kita jumpa lagi di Borak Pa&Ma yang akan datang. Bye. Say bye to the camera.
Bye-bye.
Bye.